Hello and welcome to another Atypical Philosopher video. This is a Ukraine War Update extra nuggets of things for you to taste in the world of war. Which is not a great world. I sound excited, but actually it's well, I say especially of late, it's been particularly horrible. It's horrible every day. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, the first thing I want to do is talk about the Kerch Bridge before talking again about the missiles that Russia sent over. So the Kerch Bridge down here that connects Russia to Crimea, built in 2018. Putin opened it himself. So this was something of a personal humiliation for this to be hit, as well as a strategic humiliation. Anyway, how quickly is it going to be up and running again? Well, there are some claims that it is up and running to some extent, but there is some huge damage, really. If you look at this, the melted sort of tracks and what have you. Now, the thing about tracks, railway tracks, is they can be taken out fairly easily, but they can also be replaced fairly quickly and easily. The question is what's the structural integrity of the railway line as far as the concrete underneath is concerned and everything else. They obviously have to clear away all of the hardware here, and there's a lot of heavy equipment that needs to be got rid of. I don't know how well they are getting on with that at the moment, but there are pro-Ukrainian sources saying that, you know, that's going to be up and running, or is up and running to some extent at the moment. Who knows? So the question on a lot of people's lips is, how did it happen? And the different theories are missiles, sabotage, as in like planting explosives on the bridge, a truck bomb or car bomb, or a boat or a drone boat, an unmanned sea vehicle going underneath. And there are lots of different theories here. Gordon Ramsay, Finland's national broadcaster and Major Mika Tiri of the Finnish Defence Forces, who's a bit of an explosives expert, has made a few points about what he thinks is the most likely explanation. So let me just talk you through that. So Tyrese estimates that the explosive used may have weighed between 1 and 2,000 kilograms, but was not a conventional mixture of fuel oil and ammonium nitrate, but something of much higher quality. That's an interesting observation there. He also points out that it wasn't just a big fireball, but was followed by flaming torches in the air. This suggests the use of combustible metals such as aluminium, magnesium, or thermite to amplify the explosion. In such an explosion, quote, the burning metal spread over a much wider area than just the usual large fireball. That would explain how a train dozens of meters away caught fire from the explosion. Tyree suggests that the explosive payload may have included Russian-made thermite incendiaries. The Russians have used these extensively in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians have captured unfired Russian thermite rockets. See the thread below on this topic. So you might have seen these. They look like phosphorus munitions, and some people are claiming the Russians using phosphorus, which is, you know, a bit of a problem. But there are similar incendiary munitions that look the same and are, you know, pretty horrible. They've been used. It looks like there were elements of this. If you see the videos, there are elements of these molten fragments being thrown out in the fireball as well. He also comments that the explosion likely happened on the bridge deck, with little air between the explosives and the deck, for example, exactly the height of a truck. He points to a lack of water disturbance as evidence against the possibilities of a boat bomb or sabotage of the bridge structure. On an explosion at sea level would have caused a spout of water, he says, but this isn't visible in the published videos. I'd agree there. Not that I'm some explosives expert. He also points to the location of the visible damage. If the explosive had been placed below the deck of the bridge, then there would have been no scorch marks from the explosion on the railings of the adjacent car lane. Likewise, the flares would have flown upwards, not downwards and sideways as they did in the explosion. And there you go. And Chris O has his own thoughts here with, you know, again, interesting observations that seem to point towards it being a truck bomb. There are some people that still think it's a missile attack, and there is some parts of the evidence suggest it could be, but I don't know. I think I side with the idea that it is indeed a truck, that truck going past. But there you go. You can disagree, and I'm sure you will. This is an interesting observation by Tendar, a German guy on Twitter. Says, I've been going through many channels and I cannot find a single Ukrainian soldier being killed today by the massive Russian terror attack. All are civilians. When you fire 84 missiles, you should expect a different result unless you cannot hit the army, but innocent people. And it's a surprisingly good observation that I hadn't actually considered. I've been talking about how, yes, these are hitting civilians, and this is showing that it's a terrorist sort of event, and shows you the intentions of the Russians. But I neglected to say that not a single soldier appears to have been killed. Very, very, very interesting. Forbes has estimated that Russia's missile strikes, their retaliation, has cost them between $400 and $700 million. So while the exact type of each missile launch is currently unknown, it was reported that KH-101, KH-555 caliber Iskander S-300s Tornado S missiles were used in the attacks. Certain ones of these are actually very difficult to shoot down. They go particularly quickly, and when they come down at a very acute angle, so it's very hard to shoot them down. So there's a mixture of those missiles: 84 cruise missiles and 24 drones. The question is, are these already bought and in their stockpiles, and are they going to kind of replace them? Is it actually costing this now, or is that those are costs that have already been incurred? I guess it's academic to some degree, but these are costly. These are costly activities. Okay, check this out. Another Julia Davis recording or translation: genocidal scheming on Russian state TV. Andrei Sidorov, deputy dean of world politics at the MSU, so that's in Moscow State University, urges Russia not to dismiss the right moment to cause a massive refugee crisis in Europe, exacerbating economic and political tensions by causing a massive influx of Ukrainian refugees. Well, thanks for that. It's a really nice academic position to take. So why do we need hungry, cold, dirty, poor Europe? This is a very much an anti-European rhetoric.
А зачем нам голодная, холодная, грязная,
Никогда не покупал баночку
нищая
горчицы
Европа?
в Париже.
Поэтому мы, в принципе, сейчас можем прекратить любые связи. И более того, если мы их прекратим, то мы, скорее всего, поставим Европу более скоро на грань выживания. Американцы им не помогут.
Can I just say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's always interesting to ask who your friends are. I said this during Trump's campaign in 2016. Oh, he likes Putin. Well, that's an interesting choice of friend. Like anyone who likes Putin, I need to be wary of. Now, whether you are a Trump supporter or not is kind of irrelevant here. I'm obviously not, but I was sort of questioning that move. And in 2016 as well, I questioned my own family members who were staunchly Brexiteer, right? I'm not. Okay, crucify me, whatever. But I'm a Remainer. And I think European unity is super important. And I'll tell you why I think so. In this context, Putin desperately wants to dismantle the unity of the EU, and he desperately wants to dismantle the EU. That's one of his primary objectives. And it has been, this is partly why he invaded Ukraine. If he wants to do that, my opinion would be, well, the EU is probably a good thing, because it's the only organization, well, obviously you've got NATO, but the political organization that can stand up to the intentions of Putin and the imperialistic objectives of his regime or him. And so if he got involved in rather like the American 2016 elections, where he got involved with all the bot factories and manipulating the electorate, and Cambridge Analytica and all that kind of stuff, but the Russians were heavily involved. They were also involved in the Brexit election, the EU referendum, and trying to manipulate the electorate and do the same sort of things with the EU referendum there. And I was saying to my family members and other Brexiteers around, saying, look, is this like, who are your friends here? So who are the Brexiteer friends? Well, it's Trump on the one hand and Putin on the other hand. We've got a lot of authoritarian leaders that want Brexit to succeed. And if they want Brexit to succeed, I need to be thinking, why would you want that? Because your intentions, I think, are nefarious. And if you want Brexit to succeed, then that is going to benefit you and your nefarious intentions. Therefore, I think I probably want Brexit to fail, and I want the UK to remain in Europe, to be a positive influence in reforming and improving Europe and the EU. Anyway, I don't want to get on a whole Brexit debate, but the point here is, look what these guys are saying. They want Europe to fail. Really explicitly, they want Europe to fail. They feel no pity for Europeans and for Ukrainians. And this has surely got to make you want a successful European unity to fight back against this kind of rhetoric and ideology. Again, I don't want to be, well, I can't help but be overtly political, because this is deeply political. What is going on with Putin and his attempts is to undermine European unity and undermine European political power, as well as undermine NATO, as well as undermine the US. This is a power shift. Like, ideally for Russia, they would like it to be a China-Russia dynamic. Luckily for us, China are being quite standoffish, and they haven't been. In fact, they've been very mute, in fact, slightly negative about the Russian missile attack. Anyway, sorry to interrupt. Here we go.
Их не жалко. И мне не жалко. Только дело в том, что этот момент может уйти, мы можем его упустить. И сейчас главное не то, чтобы... Да, надо подловить момент и вызвать действительно этот миграционный кризис для Европы, новый наплыв Украины. Новый наплыв.
So the only reason they want to cause a migration influx into Europe, yes, it means that they're screwing up Ukraine, but it's all about undermining the EU. This is all about destroying the unity, because they are the main source of pushback for Russia, politically speaking. Obviously, US militarily speaking, but in terms of actual geopolitics going on in the region, the US don't play as major part as the EU in terms of what Russia do on a weekly basis, normally, in normal times.
Наплыв украинцев. Делать ли это вот сейчас или пару месяцев спустя, там под Новый год, может быть, после Нового года, я бы думаю, что гораздо выгоднее это делать, конечно, уже в Новом году, вот под весну, что называется. Потому что именно тогда начнется вот более серьезное обострение экономических, социальных и прочих противоречий в Европе. Поэтому ситуацию, которую мы сейчас переживаем, надо переживать не эмоционально, а рационально. А рациональность состоит в том, что Украина как государство, в принципе, не должно существовать. Европа нам не нужна, ее можно уже отрезать.
Ukraine should not exist. We don't need Europe. We can cut it off right now.
Сейчас начинает с Прибалтики, например, которая очень активно ее поддерживает.
Starting with the Baltic states. Oh my goodness. So, like, if you're in the Baltic states right now, that kind of rhetoric is obviously chilling. That is just a horrible human beings being horrible. Sorry, that's my opinion. Let's change, before I get myself a little bit worked up. Let's change tack here. Here is a kamikaze drone being used in Kherson against an armament. Some of these kamikaze drones, like, people were talking about how wonderful the Switchblades are. They seem to have been invisible and not actually particularly useful at all. The Switchblade 300s were really, they could only take out like a couple of people. They were not designed to take out munitions, and everyone's saying these are going to be a game changer. And then they were like the Switchblade 600s, which is the more powerful version, are going to be a game changer. And then we've really heard nothing about them. So I don't know what that tells you. Well, I kind of do. So we haven't seen an awful lot of kamikaze drone footage, but anyway, there you go. Now this is something that took place recently. I don't know 100% exactly where. I've seen this footage a couple of times. I need to find out where this took place, but this is the power of GMLRS. These are multiple rocket launch systems, the MLRS, multiple launch rocket systems, and the GMLRS, the M270, is, so you've got HIMARS, which are like better versions of these, but these are, I think, possibly the precursors. And these they fire. So here in Ukraine, there's a whole bunch of these have been given by various armies, like the British Army, the Norwegians, I think, again the M270A1. As you can see, yeah, a bunch of them given to Ukraine, and these can do some serious damage. These are good pieces of kit, which are precision rocket launchers. Again, not quite as good as the HIMARS, and I don't think they can fire the ATACMS, but maybe they can. Anyway, these are being used in Ukraine. I think the UK has doubled the number that they have given them fairly recently, which is good news. But here is an example of this system in use against an entire convoy. Right, and obviously this is hugely destructive, and there will be people dying here. I don't think you actually see that necessarily, but that's what happens in war, sadly. And it's not particularly great quality footage, as in the resolution here is poor, but these drones show just an entire convoy taken out. Like the destruction that this would have caused to these vehicles is huge, and therefore the capabilities of the Russian forces. These are these rocket launchers themselves with transloaders. Yeah, it looks like these are Grads or Smerches, rocket launchers and their transloaders. Now, what was quite interesting there that I wanted to show you, let's just see that again. Right, these bits spreading out here, these are all the shrapnel and the fragments being thrown out by the explosion. I talked the other week about sometimes you don't need to get direct hits on things like artillery and vehicles. So say you had a vehicle parked here, right, and the hit was actually over here. The amount of shrapnel that can be thrown up, even from a shell or a projectile hitting the earth, can take out a vehicle. Like, all that spread there of hot molten metal or shards or rock and earth can rip through vehicles and artillery and armaments. So you don't need to get direct hits. And these bits of shrapnel can go quite a long way as well. So this rocket attack seemed to be pretty destructive, and it's quite difficult. Sometimes I talked about this again, where they stitch videos together and you're not 100% sure whether it's all the same thing, but it does look like that is the same set of vehicles fairly close to each other. Anyway, the destructive capability of multiple rocket launch system. Now here, what you see is not here, but the stuff before is that this is precision, right? These aren't I showed you the other day, these Grad rocket launchers that are just absolutely filling a whole wide area with rockets, huge amounts of rockets. These are relatively small number of rockets hitting exactly where they are intended to hit. And in here we have places, vehicles parking and hiding. And of course, this is the importance of reconnaissance, drone reconnaissance. Without drone reconnaissance, this isn't possible. This is some way behind enemy lines. And being able to hit a couple of vehicles just sat in some trees is, it means there's nowhere to hide for these vehicles. As long as you've got eyes in the air, and those eyes in the air are capable. Another piece of equipment here that is nothing I've seen before. You know, not firsthand. You hear about all these things, but this is a Mamba mobile artillery monitoring battlefield radar, or Arthur Artillery Hunting Radar, in service with the 15th Separate Brigade of Artillery Reconnaissance. Very interesting video in Ukrainian. So this is just interesting to see the different kinds of equipment being used. And the amount of technology, not just in this, but the communications for these guys, getting everything everywhere. This is a high-tech war being fought now.
Плюси всі абсолютно все одно, які умови, тобто це машина, плюс бачимо засіб.
Just tech everywhere.
20-21 гаубиця. Вона 20 живе. Давай. 5-1. 5-1. 7-2. 7-2. 6-8.
Двигуна, і це дуже класно. Працюємо за британську системою, вчилися в Британії. Ця машина, ну вона дуже специфічна. Вона
I just cleaned target lock and they grew like mushrooms. Our artillery working very hard.
Airplane working very hard, so it seems like communicating with their air force and everything. So that's certainly very interesting. Last thing I want to say before I move on to my daily life, it concerns Belarus. I talked about this in the main update this morning. Belarus have been sending tanks to Russia. So Lukashenko started handing over tanks removed from storage to Russia. They are being sent to Donbass. Okay, so just to let you know what is going on here, this is our map of Ukraine. This is Belarus. They are sending tanks to Donbass, so this region here. This means that they are sending them all the way around there. Now, unfortunately for the Russians, they would have used to have been able to go down here. But now they have to go all the way around and through the back of Luhansk and Donetsk. So in the Donbass. So here they go, and what I'm showing you this because it's amazing the amount of open source intelligence analysis that goes on, down to what railway stations they're using, when they're going to get there. These are just people on the internet doing this. Lukashenko started handing over the tanks. Yesterday, we wrote that the echelon with tanks was seen at Orsha railway station in the Vitebsk region, moving towards Russia. The video showed at least 12 T-72A tanks, and 2 assumptions were made. The tanks were removed from storage by the Belarusian armed forces. Lukashenko's regime began transferring heavy armored vehicles removed from storage to Russia. Today, published a chronology of movement of this echelon. It is confirmed that on October the 1st, a group of 72 empty flat cars arrived. So not only did they see these leaving, they know when the flatbeds, the railway sort of carriages arrived. Then they see them loaded up. Then they see them sent away. So Irachech is the location of the tank reserve base where the tanks were removed from storage and loaded onto the flat cars. And yesterday, the first group left for Uspenskaya railway station in the Rostov Oblast in Russia and further to Donetsk. Estimated date of arrival is October the 19th, 2022. So this is very interesting that's 10 days. 10 days to get tanks from here to there, which is interesting. That's the importance of taking out these logistic routes, because that could well have cut off another two days or more. It's so important to debilitate the Russians if that's what you want through hitting logistics. And here's the chronology of where they're going and the itinerary of this train. Anyway, I just thought it's interesting that so much information is out there that we can see they're removing moving tanks from storage. Okay, we've seen the train come in. All right, we know exactly which station it's going to stop at, and we know the time and day it's going to arrive in the Donbass. So if some bloke on the internet knows that, then you know the Ukrainians know that 100%. You know, NATO know that. You know, the US know that. Just fascinating. Fascinating. Anyway, there you go. That's today's update. Hope that's interesting. Please like, subscribe, join, support, all that kind of stuff, but mainly watch and get involved in the thread below. Thank you again. Take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.